Thomas set sail. It was a blustery, buffety day on the island of Sodor. Edward's coal cars creaked and cranked against the wind. Percy's mail cart shivered and shivered, but Thomas hardly noticed the wind at all. He puffed the Brandon docks. The mayor of Sodor had ordered a brand new sailing boat, tooted Thomas excitedly. The boat had a tall mast and was painted bright red. Gasped Thomas. Huffed James. Wheezed Gordon. Cranky lowered the sailboat onto Thomas's flatbed. Tooted Thomas. Snapped Cranky. Thomas whistled and he raced off. Thomas puffed proudly along. The wind was strong and the boat was heavy, but not too heavy for Thomas. He came to a steep hill. He chuffed hard, pulling the heavy boat. He puffed, and soon he reached the top. Thomas tooted. He felt very pleased, and he steamed on. Then Thomas met Emily. Thomas tooted. Wheezed Emily, and Thomas knew he did. Thomas felt very grand as he steamed past Elizabeth. She hooted. But Thomas felt far too important to take any notice. Next, Thomas puffed towards a low bridge. Rosie was waiting on a signal. Whistled Rosie sharply. Thomas applied his brakes and stopped just in time. Puffed Rosie. Huffed Thomas. Thomas chuffed proudly along. Then there was trouble. He heard a loud crunch. Thomas looked up. Tall trees were hanging over the track, cried Thomas. The tall mast must have caught in the tree. Thomas couldn't move backwards or forwards, so he huffed and he chuffed, and with a mighty rope, Thomas broke free. Tooted Thomas, but Thomas didn't know that the ropes holding the sail had united. Thomas was feeling very grand now. The wind was strong. It was blowing him along. Thomas cried happily. He was going faster and faster. The wind grew stronger. Thomas raced round the bend. Molly tooted. But Thomas wheezed so quickly he didn't hear her. The mayor, Sir Topham Hatt, and Lady Hat were waiting at the harbor. They could see Thomas racing towards them. Boomed Sir Topham Hatt. But Thomas couldn't slow down. The mayor, Sir Topham Hatt, and Lady Hat could not believe their eyes. Thomas whooshed past them, raced from them, faster and faster around the bend in the track. Suddenly, the wind dropped and Thomas stopped. He cried. Thomas knew he had been wrong to not wait for the engineers at the docks. He tooted. Thomas was uncovered from the flatbed and he steamed off. Thomas's wheels whirred to a stop at the docks. Puffed Thomas. Smiled Salty. Thomas was very relieved. The engineers climbed quickly into Thomas's cab and Thomas steamed off. Soon Thomas arrived at the sailing boat. The engineers rowed the sails and lowered the mast. Slowly, Thomas chuffed back to the harbor. The boat was heavy, and Thomas had to puff hard. This time, the wind couldn't help him. The mayor, Sir Topham Hatt, and Lady Hat were still waiting. They were happy to see Thomas, and they were happy to see the mayor's sailing boat. Boomed Sir Topham Hatt. I see you have decided that full steam is better than full sail, tooted Thomas, and he watched as the boat slid into the water. Thomas was very proud to be really useful.